So, welcome to Platform Killers, day 4, update 4. I've worked on it more than just 4 days, but I haven't updated in the past bit, so we're all covering that right here, right now. So, previously on my previous update, there was no commentary on it because it was just me showing off some of the multiplayer gameplay tests that I did with my brother really early on, multiplayer gameplay. And what's interesting is that, well, first off, is that the game is actually, entertaining to play with another person, which is good in its current state. It's only just going to get better with more features added, because as is, it's a bit feature barren. So, uh, um, the first thing is that when doing display section is that we realized that the meta for hitting people while racing, there is actually some technique in it. So originally you weren't going to be able to hit anybody while racing, and instead you could only hit or hurt other people through like more environmental type uh methods, like say like hitting a switch on a drawbridge and preventing the person from crossing over, that type of stuff. But given the fun there, that might be implemented into the like I might make sword just be the default in race mode as well. So that's worth learning from that. Ever since I started recording this one, literally every single notification on Earth is trying to go off, but I'm just trying to record this before I talk to that. So yeah. Anyway, what one thing though that was pretty apparent though when doing this first test though is that if I was to continue this going forward, this method of how players get hit when they hit one another needs to be altered. So the way that this works currently is that in this video, this older version that now I'm showing a clip from, not currently, but this clip. So the you can't kill any player by hitting them. The only way you can kill them is by pushing them into the purple kill zone. But what you do when you hit somebody is that you knock them back. And I like that concept of just only knockbacks on players. And even when I add in like enemy hazards in the game, the enemies can't kill you. They just only the purple zone can actually kill you. Uh, I think it makes it more unique as a platformer game and helps it stand out. But what happened though with this is that as is you can attack people while hitting each other back, and it kind of gets a little frantic, and it just doesn't feel as polished, as proper. It feels kind of clunky. So because of that, like maybe we're going to be able to see it in this clip here, maybe. I forget here, but nope, couldn't see it. Well, there's also this thing too, where if you start slashing sure at the same time, you can kind of diagonally climb with one another. So here I'm showing a test room, and yeah, I changed how the getting hit works. So first off, let's okay, cool. I have this set up. So I changed some things from last time. First off, the purple zones are just kind of offset, so you can't see anything. I made a flat ground. This is just a test room thing, not an actual map design thing. Um, which I will go into the maps and the map layout stuff after I explain this part. So here I also added to the players to make it easier. Because the way that players work, as a reminder, is that I have the this player this player scene, which is the same for all the characters. Then player one and player two are toggled by having color modulation, and they also have a variable dictating if they're player one or player two. Um, but on top of that too, though, I had to make another node on top of that that transmits into these player nodes to tell them what weapon they're selecting. And doing that now, I can select weapons over here on the visual editor and just toggle between the digits to get them to assign the weapons. And let's see, hopefully okay, cool. So this is the one with the sword. So as you see here, there's a health bar beneath each player. If the health bar isn't um, the most easy to read, and it's ultimately better to have the health bar be at the bottom of the screen with the scoreboard, that will be changed at a later date. Yeah, doing between the two, doing it this way was just easier to program. So I'll probably not even bother putting the health bar at the bottom of the screen if that's determined after some more testing on if it's more effective and more appealing. I'll do that stuff, at the end. But as for now, health bar follows players. So the way it works is that you can hit the player, and this exclamation points, it's placeholder stuff. I just use text things like these are zeros for the circles and underscores. It's just easier to type in placeholder assets rather than actually draw and import images. But anyway, so you have that there, and then the down happens. And the way it works is that if I hit the person, I can knock them twice while they're hurt, but while they have the exclamation point over their head, they have invulnerability, so they didn't get hurt during that point. But if they get hit and they have the exclamation point, they can't move. And when they get hit down, they are stuck on the ground for a longer period of time in a more vulnerable state, and you can't hit them back again. Now, the not being able to hit back again thing, that's subject to change if programming playtesting dictates, oh, it's more fun to push them when they're down. We'll do that. We can add that. It's not a big deal. It's just a simple script being turned on. I mean, not scripts, sorry. It's just a single line, basically being turned on and off. So that will be simple to add, but I have it for down right now because, in my head, I think that might make it a little bit more even because of the fact that if if I was able to hit this guy down again, and push him into the kill zone, think it might not be fair enough. But if he's just down and he's waiting for the kill zone, there's kind of that anxiety of like, oh, will I be able to get back on my feet before the purple gets me? And on top of that too, if you're standing on a cliff, which in our playtest we were doing this a lot, where we were standing on cliffs and hitting each other down and basically playing King of the Hill with a part of the racing map, you can do that with the character getting down and still do that strategy. So I think it's all fine. But anyway, yeah. So the other thing too is that I also did I got projectiles, and can I just say that I'm happy I did this because there are multiple mysteries of things that you're like, I feel like I should know how to do this when making a game, but though I haven't gotten around to doing a thing where I involve, basically the way it works is like once you make one thing in video game stuff, you can make more stuff while doing while making them. Like the majority of this game, I've actually not had to use reference for to actually script it after I've messed around prior with making platformer games. The stuff I had to mess around with prior, ironically enough, is the purple kill zone, just having something move across the screen at a constant. Funny enough, is something I did not know how to do, and then having something spawn from the character. So the way this is implemented may be a bit janky. Like there's probably a better way of doing this out there, but that's just like mumbo jumbo. I'm trying to make something that works, not something that is basically pretty programming right now. So if you hit the player, basically they get a similar response to the sword. Technically the knockback is slightly different than a sword knockback, but yeah, you have the bullets there, and I'm still trying to figure out if I can get the bullets to slide in the air, but but I don't think that's that's going to take a little bit more difficulty. I'm trying to figure out how to make bullets, just cancel each other out when they're shooting. But the way I handled this with the scripting is that, so as I showed before, there's the weapon ID digit that dictates what attack button the player gets to use, and then when we get there, it says like if weapon equals 1, slash attack, which is sword. If weapon equals 2, gun attack. So what I did in that previous thing was on the toggle, I made one player be weapon 1 and the other player be weapon 2 for that test sequence I was showing you. Anyway, so for by the way, this is it could be, again, shorter probably, and also it's kind of a little bit of a nightmare in terms of layout. But hey, we're you heard what I said. Anyway, let's see, where's gun attack? There is gun shooting. There you go. Okay, so this here is how all this stuff works. So in the whole entire autolog singleton global whatever variable you want to refer to it as, there's a basically in that whole entire shebang, there's a there's a script in there right here that basically allows things to be instanced within a into a sequence, and it's put there because it's easier and all that. For the tutorial, I can just refer to that specific script with any character. So if I want anything to shoot in the game, anything can shoot in the game because they have that ability now. So we have this thing where it shoots depending on if the character is facing a direction, the bullet will be shooting in that direction. If but after you shoot, you get no shoot, which you can't shoot again, and you get reload. And when reload happens, you have a 0.3 timer go on, and then basically no shoot becomes false, and you can shoot again. So that's how I'm toggling, not being able to just do rapid fire, because if that's 0, you'll get something like this, which it's like might be fun as like a power up thing, but if you're trying to do verses with one another, I can't imagine just spamming the shoot button is going to be as effective. You're going to have, if it's a little bit, it needs to be a balance of there's enough reload time that you leave an opening for yourself, but though it's not too long, so it's agony. Got to have that balance there. So then you're basically trying to make sure you're timing your shots, because if he shoots, I can jump over that. So I want to be able to jump, make sure that you can jump over things and then shoot. So had that there. So one of the things I gotta do for bolts though is that regardless on if bolts will cancel out into air, they definitely not need to not go through terrain, because because the way that the shooting maps should be set up is that they should be able to be done in a way where you can go around and shoot at each other, and then hide in terrains and use the terrains to protect each other. So like if I had one where it was like kind of like a slope, an inclining slope thing, or like some sort of like wall pillar thing, it's something you could basically hide on the corners, but then the kill zones are coming towards you. So as things get closer to the end, basically you're getting pushed to the situation where you can't use as much of your cover. So that's the type of strategy I'm thinking with the shooting button. So that's fun. Let's see if I can pull up another thing. So the next thing I want to work on after I get some of the bullet behavior to get basically cancel out at the correct sections to cancel out. I want to make the level sequences go more random, because as you saw in the playtest sequence I had earlier, hopefully I can pull that up in a decent time while talking. In the playtest, there was a the levels are in just kind of a set playlist. They're not randomized, and that in the final game, I want the levels to be completely randomized, the challenges to be randomized, and have like a sample set of like 50, some large number like that, build off of basically 50 different square rooms that are randomized that all have these skill zone things, and then tosses you to these challenges of either race or fight. I'll probably have like some sort of visual prompt that will tell you which one you're doing, which round. But then the game is supposed to be like best to 10, best to 5, that type of thing. You can toggle on the rule sets like how long you want these things to be. But having randomized challenge rooms and just good variety of challenge is very essential to this game, because if it is just kind of the set preset sets to everything, it does not lead as much replayability. But if it's randomized, it's more interesting. So a lot of platformer games, ranging from Kirby to Smash Bros, like all that stuff, have influenced a lot of my decisions when trying to work on this game. But the one game though that I would say that has definitely has a strong influence on this title is WarioWare, and WarioWare's mentality for things really but like I'm trying to get into that headspace and fully tap into it, because what WarioWare does as a game is that you have randomized sometimes they're randomized depending on the mode you're playing, but you get tossed into these micro games where you're just given a singular prompt. You have to and you have to perform an action within 5 seconds, and then it's on to the next thing. And but the one thing that WarioWare does though is that it tosses you into these scenarios, but like it gives you like the minimal information necessary to perform correctly, so that if you ever played any of these micro games for the first time, there's a good chance that you'll actually be able to complete them. It's not like completely unfair as a what am I supposed to do type of thing. And I was looking at it, I'm trying to figure out like how does WarioWare make sure that it throws all this new stuff at you, but you don't get lost, because when playing video games, if you throw a lot of new things at players, it can be difficult. Trying to play a game like a fighting game where you're expected to understand all the Shoryuken commands and all of like how pairing works and all that type of stuff, it's a lot of game mechanics being thrown at you at once, and it's a lot of different mechanics being thrown at you at once, so it's harder for people to get into it, and it has a steeper learning curve. WarioWare is throwing a lot of things at you, but the learning curve is really low. And one of the ways that WarioWare does it is through consistency. So when you're playing in the main game, not counting post-game content, but in the main game, you have different characters, and different characters have different themes around their games. To use WarioWare Touch, the DS title, as a specific example, WarioWare Touched, you have characters like Jimmy T, where every single one of his micro games, regardless of the context, regardless of what you're doing a rubbing action on your DS touchscreen. And then if you play Dr. Kroger, you're going to be playing all rotating games where you have to rotate the stylus in different directions to perform different actions. Like driving a car or trying to mix something in a mixing bowl. The thing though is that they stuck with the consistency of the controls that you're supposed to do, but the context consistently changes. So trying to take that into the context of Platform Killer, the way I wanted to do it was I wanted to have like these basically, first off, I was working with the framework of a platform game, because if you do certain things in games, and not to go too much on a tangent on this one, I've accidentally gone too long on this tangent before, but so when you make a game, you can either have context of a previous title, or let me think of a better way to say this. So context within video games can be built up in different ways, and for Platform Killers, so Platform Killers was a sub mode, a multiplayer mode within a larger single player title. I would be able to do a lot more elaborate mechanics than if I was to do it as just like a like a simple, easy first title that that is just a multiplayer only type experience. And the reason for it is that if this was like, think the Halo multiplayer. So Halo multiplayer has the entire context of all the weapons you're using and all the mechanics it's using in the arena, and people understand what they are if they played the single player mode. And single player mode trickled out those game mechanics in there. So, you know, in the very beginning of Halo, you're not, you're not using, all of the weapons or using all of the vehicles. But then if you beat single player mode of Halo and then you hop onto multiplayer with your friends who've also played single player, or at least a good portion of it, if you see the vehicle, you instantly know, oh yeah, I know what that does in single player. I know how this works in multiplayer now. So for Platform Killer, on the other hand, the context I'm working off of is platformer games as a whole, as a genre, which is a pretty broad spectrum. Halo can, so then, I'm like, okay, so if I'm working off of genre conventions rather than a singular game's mechanics from single player going into multiplayer, in a way that complicates things a bit more too, because of the fact that if I put in like, say, mechanics found in Sonic and then mechanics found in Mega Man, then mechanics found in Mario, that's a lot. Like I could definitely add in like kind of more of the spicier elements from each game, but though trying to put all of that into this would be kind of asking a lot. So the spiciest that the game ever gets in terms of mechanics is wall jumping, in terms of like, player movement and all of that. And that's intentional because of the fact that I want to make this game be only 2 buttons. And the only thing in your control scheme that ever changes is like, challenge rooms where you get a different weapon to work with. But I want like the characters to consistently feel the same. So you have the WarioWare consistency of like the characters are consistently walk the same, they jump the same, and they can always wall jump. And I put wall jumping in there because it's just, more fun to have it in there. So I feel like it would just kind of be too vanilla if you didn't have wall jumping. So wall jumping is like the correct level of spice. But this entire game though I'm trying to keep the control scheme to not counting pause buttons and menu buttons, but I want the control scheme to be nothing more than the directional pad and 2 face buttons. So, throughout development, I could have added like, I have like a dash mechanic from a previous game I've been working on, and it's a really fun dash mechanic, but it's just too complicated to toss into Platform Killers if I'm doing randomized room layouts and all of this, and also having it be something that's not a sub mode to a larger game that uses a dash mechanic. So, that's not to say that Platform Killers, like in the future, when I make more games, like I won't, bring it back as like a sub mode within a game. I would love to have this as like after I complete this game itself, it'd be cool to have it as like a mode that I reincorporate into my later games. But this is supposed to be like my first, proper completed, game I've made. So hopefully I'm not talking too much into circles on this one, talking ad nauseum and all of that, but I feel like it's really important to establish why, like my direction, my vision of this. So, of like how complex I want to make things and what my thought process is towards approaching all of this stuff. Why else am I making these, video logs, more or less, if I'm not doing that? But when going with that though, the next things I got to do after I get shooting correct and I get each room to be randomized. After I do that, until I get to the point where I just need to start generating real original assets instead of using placeholder stuff. And the 2 things I gotta do is, number 1, do more playtesting to see if there's things that need to be modified, changed, but also add in more variety in terms of platform challenges, because as you can kind of tell through this looping, footage that I have on the screen, as far as difficulty challenges and varieties go, like I feel like in terms of like player versus player, that's going to be pretty. It's fine. Like if I don't add anything else to player versus player after I get the bullets working correctly for this original version of the game, I just had it swords and guns and nothing else. It'd be okay. I'd like to add a third weapon into the mix to add more variety, but um, it's but point being though is that I don't think there's really any hazards that are needed in the multiplayer arenas. I mean the PvP arenas, sorry, but the race arenas, those rooms definitely need to have elements that you have to worry about, and I'm going to need to go in and do them like simple stuff like Goombas or breakable terrain that goes through. I mean that you can destroy if you walk across it, that type of stuff. Um, but when I'm doing all that stuff, like I'm not going to be trying to do anything too complicated. Like I'm not going to have like a boss with a detailed attack pattern put into those rooms, or um, I'm not going to try to make a new type of grunt style enemy, like the of like you're going to have like kind of your standard like Goomba type enemies, often in there. Um, yeah. I guess maybe the last thing I want to bring up is that, um, mm, you know, this game like it is been really interesting to do because it really shows how good Godot is as a game engine and kind of how simply put, like like if you know the questions to ask and you are just willing to learn Godot and making a game at least to this level of competency isn't the hardest challenge out there. I'd argue that something I'd argue that there's definitely harder things out there for to do, like say drawing or something like that. I'd argue drawing is harder than this stuff, but the biggest hurdle when you get to get with things like Godot or it was like a lot of my opinions of like how hard is it to learn Godot is similar to my opinions of how hard it is to learn Blender. If you know the right questions to ask and you have the right resources to basically ask questions to directly, it it's not terrible. It's not terribly hard, but it's just a large volume of information, and that large volume of information gets kind of misconstrued with difficulty of information because um like so um yeah, it's up to me if I, basically commit to my memory and I remember how to, make a bullet spawn within a game environment when you hit the action button, or have like, basically the ability to make like a specific object spawn another object within a game. It's up to me to uh, to retain that information. But the actual information itself of like the actual the ways that you do something like that for the bullet thing, like that there were it was new commands, but uh, when like I was looking at the tutorial on how to do it, they weren't really necessarily hard commands to modify because the tutorial I was working with, like I didn't have a tutorial to do the Mega Man style shooting like I implemented into the game. The tutorial I was looking at was how to do top down shooting with that you determine direction by rotating your mouse. So that, but I was able to understand what was being done within that code to determine what needed to be altered to make it make sense in a platformer environment. And um, that not all things are as straightforward as you understand. Oh, this is the thing that needs to be changed to get this response. Um, like illustration again is a good example. Like a lot of times, if you follow somebody while drawing, it's harder to understand the exact, kind of like, bits and pieces that they're doing, and understanding, oh wait, hold on a second, if I alter that thing, that's how I get the different response. Finding the specific alteration points uh within like Godot, it's it gets that type of stuff, it gets easier the more you do it. So um but that being said, again, though, it's like also I do have a lot to learn myself, though, because this thing should not nearly be a half as long as it is. This is this is a nightmare of like a laundry list of things. Like, probably should be using machine states in this code, but there's no machine states in the entire player script. Anyway, that's I'm done talking.